We are looking at a real estate lead generation template and system for Facebook Messenger. The goal here is to capture leads through a conversation using a few different technologies. We're going to use Google's Dialog flow, and we have a list of intents here where we're going to try and understand the messages that users send through a Facebook page. And we're also going to be able to extract values from those messages. So if we just look for our lead intent, and we can click into here, and you can see that we're going to understand some of the things that users might say to a real estate agent on Facebook. And we're going to try and understand that. And we can do that by highlighting or annotating certain words and then being able to extract some values, some possible meanings from those words. Here you can see interested in selling in the next 6 months. And these are variable. So maybe they're interested in buying in the next 2 weeks. So because these are annotated, it means that we're going to be able to store a value in what's called as a parameter. This one here called property action. This one here is called lead time. And we are able to understand what our possible values are, our acceptable values, because we've created what's called as dialog flow entities. So we have a list of entities that we've created. Maybe we want to know if they're looking for commercial real estate. So if they say anything like they're looking to buy a warehouse, or they're looking to sell a shopping mall, or they're looking to lease a school, then we all know that these are possible values for commercial real estate, and we've named this entity property commercial. So that might be an example of an entity that we're going to use to extract a value from a message. So we can provide some sample messages, use some of these entities which we've created, and Dialogflow also has some system entities. So this one, a date period, is where you can see in the example, the value that we're going to get is the next 6 months. But if you send a message like looking to buy a condo in the next 3 weeks, then you can see that this intent was triggered, the one we're looking at here, and we're able to get some values. So we were able to get that this is an apartment, and it is because we were able to extract that value using our property residential entity, and the value was stored in this property residential parameter. And then we have this date period entity that we're using to get a date value from the message, and we're storing that value in this date period parameter. So this is how we best use Dialogflow, and you can see here property action is another entity, and the value we're able to get and store is buy. So we can just look at that real quickly. Action, so you can see this is an entity that we created that lists all of the possible things that users might say, where we can categorize that into this property action entity. So maybe they say, are they looking to sell or buy or rent or lease, sublease, renovate? These are all action words. So we name this entity property action. We listed out all of the things that users might say within the life cycle of a property or real estate transaction. We've included synonyms. So, if they say they're looking to downsize, that means they're looking to sell. So we can include some synonyms here. And then we can use these entities in our training phrases, where we're going to be able to try and extract some values. Now, that is the main purpose of Dialogflow in this system. And you can see here in the action and parameters table that these are all of the the parameters that we're using. And we can edit those names, but we've created them for you in this template. And these are all the entities that are going to be used to get values and store them in these parameters. Some of these values might be required. Now, we can make them required. We don't let the user send another message until we get a specific value. So maybe I want to know how many bathrooms they want in a house that they're looking to buy. And so all we need to do is make that as required. And then you can see here we can define a prompt. So we can say how many bathrooms. And it will, we can do that. That's actually the name property bathrooms. Maybe they say washroom or something that would indicate that they're looking for bathrooms. But we actually have another one here. Oh, here it is. Bathroom number. So we're looking for a number because we're looking for we're using this system entity to get a number. Maybe they're looking for a house with 3 bathrooms or 5 bathrooms. So we want to get an actual number. That number could be any number of bathrooms, but it's a number we're looking for, and we'll make that required. And you can see here that I've already defined this prompt that says, how many bathrooms? Enter a number. So you can specify which parameters, which values you need to get and store those values, and not respond to the user with, properties or whatever your response is going to be to something that expresses an intent to transact, to buy, to sell, to lease. You can make sure that you get all the values that you need to be able to respond to the user by making these required. Now, I haven't made them required here. I've left that up to you. Instead, what I'm going to show you is that once this intent is triggered, and hopefully we'll get some values from the user's message, because we can automatically store those values inside of ManyChat. ManyChat is a conversational CRM, if you will. It allows you to manage your contacts, and all of the data that we're able to get from Dialogflow gets automatically stored. So these are the values that we're looking for from a user's message, and they automatically get stored inside of ManyChat. And then you can follow up with your contacts, and you'll have a profile that is rich in data. It provides you a whole bunch of lead data points that we are able to automatically get from just the user sending messages. Now, maybe we want to create responses to those messages, and so we can do that with ManyChat as well. You can see here that ManyChat has what's called flows, and these are some general real estate flows that we have, like when the user first messages the bot. And they might say hi, or how's it going, or hey, and you're going to be able to respond with one of these ManyChat flows. So, for example, if you look at this intent here, let's just leave this one. Let's go to the welcome intent. And you can see here that these are the things that users might say when they get started with your bot. And then you're going to respond here with one of these, with a ManyChat flow. This flow corresponds to this right here. So sorry, this response in the Dialogflow intent, let me just close this, is going to corresponds to this flow here. And so we've done that for all of the main real estate Dialogflow intents. You can see here, let me just search for that lead one again. If a user's message is able to trigger this intent, we're able to get some values out of that message or not, we're still going to reply with a ManyChat flow. And here's the flow. And if we go into these Dialogflow responses, you can see that all of these flows, they all share the same names as, you see, real estate lead is the name of this intent. And if we can probably find, there it is, real estate lead is going to be how we're going to respond to the user. Now, because we're able to get some, we might get a value out of the user's message, and because it's automatically stored in ManyChat, we can check to see if that value exists. And if it does, then we can respond a certain way. And if it doesn't exist, we can respond a different way. So you're able to use the values to create conditional responses with ManyChat. Now, the third thing we're going to use is bot sheets. And bot sheets allows you to manage a lot of your content inside of Google Sheets. So you don't need to be a database developer or database designer. You just need to be able to know how to manage a spreadsheet. And you just input your data, and your ManyChat bot is going to read from this Google Sheet to help generate a dynamic response using data you have here. Now, just a couple of things that we've added to this Google Sheet so you can see is just a list of all the dialog flow intents and what they do for your reference. And this one's really important, field mapping. So here you can see that these are the dialog flow entities. These are all the custom entities that were created. And these are the system entities that Dialogflow lets you use, like times and percentages or duration or a number. So we don't, we let a computer determine a value because that's an infinite value. And these are predefined lists of possible values that we've created. For example, holidays. So we list out all of the holidays. We want to know what commercial properties mean, or maybe there's different. They're looking for a modern house, so that would be a value of property design style. So there's different things that users say, and a number of entities that we can use to understand what they say. And then, as mentioned, those values get stored in a Dialogflow parameter in the intent. So you can see here, most of these parameter names are the same as the entities, but a parameter is just, it's going to hold data temporarily in Dialogflow. You're going to want to store that data for an indefinite amount of time, and that's where you can use ManyChat as your CRM. And if you have ManyChat user fields, and they match the Dialogflow parameter name, then when a user sends a message and triggers a Dialogflow intent, and you're able to extract a value with a Dialogflow entity in that intent, that value gets stored temporarily in a Dialogflow parameter, but it's automatically stored in its corresponding ManyChat user field because the name is exactly the same. So here is the type of ManyChat user field. These are text fields. But for example, here, if we're looking for a number from the user, and we want to know a quantity of something, then we can store a number inside of ManyChat, and we can create conditions based on numeric calculations. Is the number greater than 4? Respond this way. Is the number less than 2? Respond this way. So you can create text conditions, and you can create number conditions, date conditions, all based on the type of data that gets stored. Okay, so that is really helpful as a reference to understand that what the relationship is between the Dialogflow agent and the entities and the parameters and the ManyChat bot, and how data will flow and get stored inside of ManyChat. So you can then create responses or just access all types of data when you access a user's profile or contact information inside of ManyChat. Now, the other thing that we have here in this Google Sheet is lead collection data. So you can see here that I have lists of data that I'm going to want to collect from the user and store that data. And when I have that data stored, I can follow up with them very easily with all of this data at my disposal. Or I can take some of those data points and I can search with that data. So these are lists that I've added. These are, what does the user want to do? I want to know if they want to buy or sell. And let's take a look at what this looks like through the chatbot for a second. I'm going to send the message, I want to buy a condo. That's going to trigger an intent, that lead intent that we looked at in Dialog flow, and it's going to respond with a ManyChat flow that says, help us learn more about your preferences. So that will hit this intent, and it's going to go here to search one, which is kind of the first step in collecting some information from the user. And you can see here that this is where Botchis comes in hand. We can define what lists of data we want the user to see and where that information will get stored in ManyChat. And so if I go here, it says, help us learn more about your preferences, set preferences, right? And so you can see there's that step. The user's going to click this button and access some lists of data. So let's do that. And here's our list. What are you looking to do? Looking to buy, sell, rent, lease, location, and then you have a bunch of locations because you want to know where they're looking to transact. What type of property? Residential, commercial, land, real estate. And then select up to 3 desired features. And you can see some of these are drop-down menus, and these here are checkboxes. So you can select multiple options. And then we also want to get a timeline, right? So how quickly do we want to act to help this customer? So, are they looking to do something within 2 weeks, or is it a year? And so all of this data that we're displaying here is stored in these lists here. We just create all the data that we want. We use Google Sheets as a database. We use ManyChat, and we use here to define what it is, what those lists are going to look like. So you can see here it says, what are you looking to do? And this is the type. So all of this is templated for you. But you can edit it. You can change what it is that the user will see, what data lists do you want to access, and then where's that data going to get stored. So you can see here we're going to save the user's location selection to this ManyChat user field called property locations. So forms are really easy. It's not just all about text and asking and then having the bot follow up with additional questions and getting the user to type that in. Sometimes it's more efficient just to load up, to understand the intent of a user and then trigger a response where you can capture some additional information through a simple form. Now on mobile, this doesn't open a new browser tab. It's directly on top of the conversation in Messenger. So it feels much more native to the conversational experience, but it's just reduces the number of steps that the user needs to take to provide the information that you need. And then you can save those preferences, and you can then let's just see here what happens. And that's actually going to take me, there you go. So I'm just going to close the, yeah. So here you can see, help us learn more about your preferences. We click that button. We got some preferences. And then you can see here, I can't find anything that matches all of your preferences, but let me see if I can find properties in your desired location. So that's what we're able to do is we have a number of flows where, if we can't find a match, you can see here, where is it? It's up at the top here. Yeah, so where is it? Well, yeah, it's going to capture their preferences, and then it is going to Yeah, here it is, sorry. Flow to send on submit. So when the user clicks that submit button in the form, it's going to take them to another flow. And so if we go back here, let's go back to our flows, real estate, and I know that flow is here, search to. So it's taking them through that step where we're going to display the values that they input, and then we're going to do a search with some of the criteria that we can search with. And that is going to search this Google Sheet here, properties. So in this sheet, all we need to do is list out some basic information. A title, which could be the address, a subtitle, which is just some quick little short information about the property, and then keywords. And so this is like everything that a user might search for, or keywords that we can extract from any message. And it just helps us search. And then you have a picture of the property itself, and that's how you get this nice looking presentation here. It was able to find, based on this criteria, just the location. And you can see here, at this point, they can click Get Details, or they can arrange viewing. Now, these buttons are actually defined in the Google Sheet as well. So you can see here, if I scroll along, that for this property, so this is the one that's in New York, right? And you can see here, it says this is get details, and if they click that button, the target is going to be a URL, because this is the button type. It says URL here. And there was a second button that says arrange viewing, and again, the button type, we want it to trigger a URL. This is what we want the button to say, and this is the target. We're going to just send them to a calendar. So all of your sort of dynamic data is all added into a Google Sheet. You just add a list of your properties. Here, the last one just says see all properties, and we don't need any other criteria. We want to send them to our website. But all of the criteria to dynamically generate properties based on user preferences is managed from here. And how that data is accessed for the user is defined here in ManyChat. And the data gets stored into our user fields, which you can see these are just some of the criteria that we're collecting through that form and storing. So this is all just, when it works together, you don't have to use you can ask for additional criteria. Maybe you want to ask for how many bedrooms are they looking for? Maybe you're just a residential real estate agent, and one of the things that you want to know is how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms. So I've added here a column for bedrooms and a column for bathrooms. And then in your your requests, right, when you want to collect some information from the user, let's go back here. Oops, let me go back here. Search one. We can then define what it is. We can ask the user to, we can customize that form to collect that data, store a number for the bathrooms, a number for the bedrooms, and then when we do a search, we can say, okay, well, we want to search for using a value for bedrooms and bathrooms, and we can search this sheet. So that's essentially the basic way to use the Google Sheet. You'll want to define all of the things that you want to collect. You can ask up to 5 questions in one of those forms. Even though I have more than 5 columns, I've just picked some of the columns. And you can add additional columns to this as well to collect some values. And then you're going to want to search a Google Sheet using those values to generate a list of properties. And so therefore, it's really easy. Once this is set up, and it is templated, but assuming you change some of these things here, And all you really need to do is manage a list of your properties in the Google Sheet. Add a whole bunch of attributes like location, the type, bedrooms, even price, and add some keywords, add an image, and add your call to action. And since real estate properties are frequently changing content, it's so much easier to just manage it here. Leave all the logic to the bot systems. So leave it to ManyChat to define what you're going to read and how it gets presented to the user and where that data you collect gets stored. And use Dialogflow to just understand the messages so that when people message your business, you can respond to them. And you'll be able to, as you can see, you'll be able to collect potentially multiple data points from a single message. So you don't have to ask them a series of steps and say, oh, well, what are you looking to do and what are you looking to buy or sell, when? The user might just message you, I'm looking to lease an apartment in October for 2 weeks. And because this Dialogflow template is able to understand what the user might mean, we're able to extract and store some values from that single message. We know that they want to lease, we know what they want to lease, we know when they want to lease it, and we know for how long. And all of that data we can just, whether we just follow up and respond to the user, no problem. Looks like you're looking to lease an apartment in October for 2 weeks, and we can deliver that message back to the user. We're able to save a lot of steps in the process, and we have that data stored so we can follow up with them immediately. And Bot Sheets really just then lets us take that data and dynamically generate content in Messenger using all of that data that we have stored. And if the user doesn't get the results that they want, you can always just send them back, let them edit their preferences, and you can collect additional data, or you can escalate the conversation to a human, and a human can follow up and take it from there.